Hey class, I'm coming to you live from my car here on the LMU campus to make this video for you about our final paper. If you see here on the screen, I've showed you that we are under the content section of my LMU Connect that says the final paper. And this is going to give you insight on how to create your final paper, hopefully along with this lecture that I'm giving you. Here at the top, you're going to see one last read. I encourage you to read the epilogue in Woods to give you more insight on liberation and active social change. Her entire textbook lays out a lot of statistics and a lot of theories and concepts, but never gives us a practical way to take that information that we've learned and then how to make change from it. And so the epilogue in her book does so and lays out, it's only about 4 pages, some different ways of which one can make social change. I'd encourage you to look at it because what Woods may be able to do is give you an overarching idea about social change, and then you can specifically narrow your focus with maybe some of our active agent reads and how people have narrowed their focus about, like, I don't know, like speaking out, like this is how we've spoken out, right? But you may be able to pull some good material or some good quotes that speak to or support the claims that you're making. Beyond that, what I really want you to do is look at this. It's called the Cycle of Liberation. It's a continuation of the reading that you did at the beginning of the semester called the Cycle of Socialization. So this Cycle of Liberation picks up where your Cycle of Socialization left off, which you will see at this waking up moment. And from there on, he goes through a process of liberation as a way to make change and to create social change as an agent in regards to, for this particular class, gender and the communication that exists within our society that keeps gender and equity going. But let's look here at the final paper, and then you can always refer back to the visual chart, the visual diagram as we go along if you'd like on your own. So from socialization to liberation, that's what you all are going to be doing. This semester, you all have been reading about how individuals and groups are working to make active change to the oppressive and harmful gender communication used in our society. So what am I talking about here? I'm just saying you all have been doing your active agent reads, and you've seen how many people are taking on the challenge of trying to make gender equity possible. And that's what I am looking for in all of you. And this doesn't have to be a grand idea of like social movements and I'm going to start a revolution, although I can't wait for you all to start a revolution and a movement. This is more about your own personal journey and where you would like to see it go in the future as by chance or as being an active agent of change. And so the first step is, of course, our own acknowledgement and our own recognition. It's trying to take small steps in our everyday life, then maybe speaking out to people if we feel comfortable, then going out and speaking to maybe our social groups, and then like, how do I want to make it happen for the rest of the world or continuously? So that's really where this idea of liberation goes. But let's continue to read on in this prompt, and we'll get back to that idea as we go along. You've seen examples of each week how little changes, either big or small, can make such a huge difference in people's lives and towards this action that we're looking for. But your final paper is going to be based upon this article, The Cycle of Liberation, much like that of your first project. It's going to revolve around reflections of who you are and how you see yourself as an object, if you will, or how you see yourself being marked and how you have seen yourself being gender socialized. And I want you to see how you can, and I want you to see if there is one area in particular that has not only been an aha moment, so it doesn't have to be your aha moment from the socialization project, although it can, but I think that what many of you are now starting to realize from your socialization project is although you had maybe an aha moment, you didn't understand how to connect the dots to how that, how you having maybe toys that were very gendered as a child have led to the many other steps in life, or the toys that are always presented to girls or the toys that are always presented to boys have led to numerous other areas of oppression within our society. So what this is saying here is that I want you to reflect upon who you are and how you see yourself becoming a liberated being from the gender norms and rules that have been ascribed to you. With that being said, what is it that you would like to change? Now, I don't want you to think that, for example, we have, let's say, I was always dressed in pink, and I was always dressed in pink as a girl, and that pink really was harmful to me. No, if I want to dress Dylan in pink for the rest of her life, I will. And if I want to wear pink for the rest of my life, I'm going to wear pink. That has nothing to do with gender inequity. What happens with pink is when pink then becomes a color that is mandated in order to be seen as something feminine, or when pink or any other color becomes a symbolic representation of either masculinity or femininity. And from that color becoming known or socialized in its own as that, then is there a reinforcement that comes with that color that then leads to gender inequity? So going back throughout your life and your experience, I want you to think about ways that you've been gendered. If those ways that you've been gendered have not given you problem, have not led to social inequity or inequity between genders or sexualities within our world, then you don't need to talk about them, because there are a lot of things about gender, although it's hard to guess from our semester, there are a lot of things about gender that really are neutral and that don't have a lot of bearing. But I would say that really 90% of our socialized norms, behaviors, attitudes, beliefs around and surrounding gender, coupled with any type of symbolic representation, whether it be your aesthetics, your looks, your body, your clothes, your dress, all of those things have had a very negative repercussion on genders themselves. So I'm encouraging you to think about the one area that you'd really like to focus on. So I've gotten many questions from people who are like, I really want to concentrate on, for example, let's say they want to concentrate on social media. Well, social media isn't a problem of itself towards gender inequity. It's a way to spread gender inequity quickly. But what is the problem gender-wise inside of the social media that is becoming the problem? So if we start to take steps back, it's like, what do I hate about social media? Well, I don't know. I hate that, people are always having to look thin and have this idealized version of like themselves. So then we take a couple steps back. Okay, well, where did that come from, and how did that get established, and how did that get created? Well, if we go back to the beginning of the semester, you're going to note that it's going to be clear that women, in particular, if I was looking at women, I could say that our standard of being, or being anything worthwhile, or giving us any bearing, is all based upon our physical appearance. And you've learned that from a young age through the messages that you were told, through the shows that you watched, through the ways that you were socialized. So we understand that. So I want you to maybe focus back on that area, and then you can start to reflect upon how that socialization is something that you would like to break free from, and that would be your focus of liberation. So you really need to establish a problem, and I'm going to hold on to that idea and we'll come back to that at the end, but let me finish talking to you a little bit about the paper. So beyond your own personal change, I really want you to go out and think about how you're going to explore this change, and then how you're going to share that with others, and how you're going to work to be an active agent of social change in the world. This paper is going to be about 7-10 pages in length. It's going to include themes and concepts and terminology from the duration of the course. So I'm going to want to see that you're going to go back to, theoretical concepts and the social construction of gender, language, nonverbal, media, violence. I want to see that you are using a holistic gathering of materials from this class. Do you have to use it from every single area that we covered in class? No, but I would like to see you have a good breadth and depth of the scope of the class. You are required to use at least 5 outside readings in addition to the Woods text to support your ideas. So the Woods text can be one, and then you're required to use 5 additionals. You can use your active agent reads. Those are fair game for the 5, but you may need to do some outside searching as well. Please feel free also to use any of the documentaries or videos that we've watched in class, and you can use those and cite those, like the TED Talks. Your library also has a very detailed DVD collection if you would be interested in watching some more sources. I can always give you some other documentaries that would be effective towards your particular topic if you'd like that information. I can also steer you towards other outside resources if you're having a hard time finding support for anything. Let me know, but you can also look to the back of your Woods text in the references area and see if she has some other places for you to look and further your understanding. I want you to go ahead and also remember to use proper APA or MLA format. I'm fine with that. And be sure that you're citing all the sources that you're using inside of your work. And then for the purpose of structure, what I want you to do is use Harrow's cycle of liberation as a template for your paragraphs and the layout of the work. So much like you did for the first speech and how you laid it out by paragraphs, you can do the same thing with Harrow. However, what I want you to know is that the liberation part is really the final couple paragraphs of your paper. So it's going to simply lay out those ideas, but the first part of your paper I'll go over in a second. So honesty and practicality are the key to this paper. So meaning really be honest with yourself and acknowledge what you have as a perspective and how your perspectives are very important to your journey, but also how your perspectives are very unique to your own experience. We've spoken a lot about intersectionality this semester, and remember that no two experiences are alike, and because of our power and privilege in specific areas, some of us may have never had to think or had to address other areas. So if you wanted to acknowledge that kind of honesty and practicality throughout your speech as well, throughout your paper as well, that would be great. And second, make choices for change that you can stick to, that you can make happen, that you actually will do. Don't go on some grandiose adventure like for my sake. I would rather have you do things that you can stick to and that you will do. So here are some helps from writing beyond the syllabus and what's up there. I want you to remember that the cycle of liberation is going to happen throughout your entire life. Don't be committed to by the end of college or by the end of the semester I need to do something. In another 10 years you may discover a whole new way to liberate. I also don't expect you to make any political change by the end of 3 weeks from now, but I would like to see how you can make some kind of change in your life and how you do have a commitment to do so. Number 3, you can take on as many issues of gender oppression as you would like to discuss. Your grade does not reflect, however, you having more than one. So if it's easier for you and you find yourself better at writing if you focus on one area, do so and just really explore that area. And finally, the structure is up to you. Via the prompt in this handout and down below that I'm going to go over, you're going to know the areas that you need to cover. I have listed out prompt questions for you to answer, and you don't have to answer all of them, but make sure that you're at least addressing each area. So let's look at how you can lay out this paper and how you can come up with your topic and how this can be most effective for you without getting confusing. What I want you to see here is the first step, which is naming the problem. This is going to be the biggest chunk of your paper. And really, if it takes 5 pages to get through this, that's fine. But this is how you should introduce the work and introduce your problem. So name the problem. This is where you're going to tell us what area your focus will be. And the issue with telling us what your focus will not only be telling us that, but what I want to see is the next sentence. Describe the systemic assumptions, structures, rules, or roles that are flawed with that and why. I want you to use theories, concepts, stories, and examples from your readings and from your texts to back this up. And like it says, this may take up a bulk of your paper, and I'm fine. I just want to see that you can acknowledge connections. So if we are talking about an area of masculinity, and let's say that your biggest fight is that you want to take on heterosexuality as being a descriptor of a man or being masculine in our culture, so that you can only be heterosexual to be seen as a man. And that is what you are going to take on. That was maybe your aha moment that you were like, what? That is crazy. Because out of that concept, that is a problem of its own. Many other things are going to stem from that, like homophobia and violence against any LGBTs, and it's going to be our depiction and our continued expression in the media, and it's going to be the choice of our language or even our nonverbal norms and socializations. You can explore so many areas of our class just based upon that specific narrow topic. So really go back and start looking at, like, in socialization or in biology or in our theories of gender and how we look at it, language, nonverbal communication, how all of those chapters that we've covered will give you helpful insight as to how masculinity as heterosexual are incredibly problematic. And I want you to be able to lay that out as to how that is problematic and leading to the continued inequity of social or sexual orientation in our society, and in turn inequity of gendered roles or gender equity in our society. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense about how we can start to narrow these ideas. So once you go through this look back at your semester, I then encourage you to get to the cycle of liberation, which is this waking up. So what was it that woke you up during the semester, and why? Clearly you are choosing this as your moment. So this would be a way to take this paper, and if up until now you've done a real theoretical approach and you've really laid out the problem and you've laid out our need for social change and that this is an existing problem and it can't go on any longer, then you can make it more personalized, and you can say, I have a personal connection with this, and I'm fine with you writing in an I because this is asking you for I. And then you can go into the waking up portion. So it's like, I have a huge moment in class when I realized that this situation happened. And for me, I can see that this is not only going to not work for myself because it's going to harm me, but also it is harming society in a greater way. So now let's look at how we can start to take social change. So each of these paragraphs, getting ready, reaching out, building a community, coalescing and creating change, and finally maintaining, these are all reflected up here in your diagram. And you can read about them in detail in that cycle of liberation. But you are going to take on getting ready, reaching out, like these 5 different ways. And you can either make them unique paragraphs on their own if you would like to, or which I'm fine with, but again, about 4 or 5 sentences for each one, or a couple, and I shouldn't even say 4 or 5 sentences. I think that the best way, because I don't want to give you a length, but I think that the best way to do this is to look at what each liberation stage looks like. So if we look at getting ready is about you acknowledging and becoming aware of what you're doing every day to contribute to this part of inequity. So how have you began already to dismantle your beliefs about your topic and about that area of focus? Are there things that you have either already done or maybe that you need to do to start getting ready to go out and make change? It's like just making sure that you're good with yourself. It's like we can't go out and help others if we haven't already helped ourselves. So what are you going to do? I'd encourage you to go back to look at your active agent reads, to look at all of your readings throughout the semester. And this is where you can start to pull from support of other individuals who have done things, or if you can look back at how by changing the language through the active agent reads, it has produced great change, or it has created less depression in individuals, or it has created a environment where people stick up for each other, stand up for each other. So that's really what each of these topics are going to hold. So then reaching out, have you started to make your voice heard about your topic area when in conversations with friends or families or coworkers? If not, what can you start thinking about to change when the time comes when you're faced with oppressive language or statements or images? So if you wanted to, you could also focus on, this in specific. When I'm talking to friends or families or coworkers, this is what I would, like to do, or like, how am I going to use my voice personally to at least assert that I'm not okay with that? When in a safe environment, how do you assert, or how do you talk about it, or what do you need to know, or how do you need to be educated? That's a really important part about reaching out as well as getting ready. The next step is building a community. So how will you dialogue about difference? This is important when we want to build a community. I think that it's important to do shared stories and to really share our experiences. So do you see a way of which shared stories or shared experiences or shared knowledge or shared understanding is going to be important to you making an active social change? So like testimonies of people who are involved in struggles, and can you start to think about like how you would seek this out in order to build a community and to provide other people with an understanding. This is a really great area if you're thinking about building a community. You can look at the ways of intersectionality, or how to be an ally to those, and acknowledge that we do not have I cannot speak for all women. I cannot speak for all homosexuals. I cannot speak for all people of color because I don't know how their experiences have been in comparison to mine. But is it important at the same time to reach out to people in communities that are different from ours in order to build some kind of community together? We can see that, like, the problem of feminism, if you will, building a community, it was limited to initially very limited to one particular type of woman. And so how is that not working to dismantle any of the issues that were going on? So how can you think about that community building? And then this creating change. So this can be small scale, it can be large. I understand that it may not even be something in your mind's eye right now. If you would like to address movements or change, then instead that you have seen in your change agent readings that you admire, or you would like to piggyback on, or you could see working in some kind of area that you're involved in already, then this may be something that you could look at as well. And then the last thing, maintaining. What can you do for your future self? So you, maybe your future generations, should you ever choose to have a family, for maybe future college students or future coworkers, to keep your efforts alive. What I do want to note is that in class today, when we discussed after, there was a great area of focus, because one of your students or fellow peers was talking about their desire to talk about the Greek system and the problems with gender inside the Greek system. And although that is a great topic, again, it becomes a little broad. So how do we narrow our focus there? Well, you think about the areas that you are irritated with inside the Greek system. And so let's say it's talking about, again, reproducing a need to have a particular aesthetic in order to be deemed acceptable in society as a woman, and placing that as the priority of our existence. So that would be your area of focus if you wanted to on the grand scale. And in the area of, sorry everyone, and in the area of naming the problem, that's where you're going to want to develop that in general. Then, if you wanted to, in the waking up portion, you could narrow your focus and say, I woke up this semester because in class we learned about A, but I saw it always existing within the Greek system. And then you can take your entire part down here in the cycle of socialization and apply it solely to the Greek system. The same thing for our student who is looking at an idea of social media. What you could do is name the problem, develop the idea of aesthetics, of appearance, of women's, what the idea is, and how, that's always been there and socialized, etc. But then once you get into the waking up part and everything else for the liberation area, you can focus solely on social media if you wanted to. The other thing that you could do here is that if you do intersect in numerous ways, so if let's say you are a woman of color, if you wanted to, your waking up part could take one of those ideas again about, assertiveness or about language or about anything. And then when you do the waking up part, you can say, I was made very aware of this because being a woman of color, my experience of, let's say, harassment have been much different because it's always been there and prevalent in my culture. Thus, in this area, you can include both not only what you can do as a woman, but what you can do as a woman of color, specifically for your particular demographic area. In this, of course, acknowledge the fact that this one experience is your own, and of course, all experiences need to be accounted for. But I guess what I'm saying is I think that all of you are aware that by limiting any type of gender struggle to just one group, it really excludes equity from being possible altogether. So that being said, which we all know, I'm fine with you still doing that narrowed focus for your own personal growth and development. If you think that working with children is the most important thing and you're like, I want to educate kids on this, I need to go into elementary schools tomorrow, great. Your wake up is that this is an issue and it needs to be changed and we need to start it early. So how are you going to do it? And how are you going to liberate yourself and the rest of those kids around you? So I hope that makes a little bit more sense to you about how you can narrow the focus if you'd like to. What I want you to note is the in-class presentation, and you can of course look at this down here, but what you're going to be doing once you do this presentation, or once you finish writing your paper, is you are going to be giving us a in-class presentation our last week of class. So I'm going to go back in the content section, and if you notice, it has here the final week, December 1st and 3rd. So this lays out our final week for you and what you are going to need to do. So if you'll see here, this will be our final week in class. During our class time, you are going to share 2 to 3 minutes about how you are going to change. So again, I would encourage you to let us know what you focused on, okay? So as it says here, during our class time, you're going to share a 2 to 3 minute presentation about how you're going to change. Based upon your paper of liberation and what you know about the many ways people all around us are working to make great change in the damaging areas of gender oppression, what are you going to do and why? So I want you to come up with your focus. I want you to give us a quick statement about how it's problematic and why. And then I want you to come up with one way that you plan on making a change. And if that means that you want to share your way that you are committing to stopping using the word guys, or you are committing to not calling anybody bitches, or that you are going to stand up to street harassment, that's what you're going to share with us. And then I'm going to be handing you all out a poster board next week, and I'll try to bring those in on Tuesdays, but you'll each get a poster board to take home, and you're going to make a poster that says your change. This is going to not necessarily be like, I'm going to end street harassment. But instead, what's like a saying or a motto that can come out of this? Could you create or synthesize your concepts into one motto? And you can create a hashtag out of this if you want to. You can be as creative as you want, but your poster is what's going to, you'll hold up for us. And based upon that, we're going to start to see where your change is coming from and what your area that you want to liberate yourself and the rest of the world from is. The rest of the world. So please note that, and then this is going to be our other area. So please note that all papers are going to be due on December 3rd. We will begin giving these presentations December 1st, but you don't have to turn them in until the 3rd. Because this is our final day of class, I will not be giving these papers back to you. So if you do want to get your paper back, I'm going to ask that you turn into me with your paper a self-addressed stamped envelope that will be enough to cover the price of getting your paper back to you. If you don't want to have your paper given back to you, then you'll just see your grade on my LMU Connect. No big deal. I'm not hurt in either way. So that's up to you. The last thing is I want you to come to class at least 10 minutes early to sign up in the order that you would like to go. Down here are the dates for your presentations. And if you've noticed, these are backwards. So Tuesday, December 1st, Jessica, Bryce, Donna, Natalie, Madeline, Rachel, right? So you have all of you here. You're all on the 1st. And then the Thursday is these friends over here. So please note when you're giving your presentation, and also note when you have to turn your paper by, which is December 3rd. And then finally here, you'll see my students from last semester, and maybe that will give you a little bit of some understanding about the areas that they took on. You know, pick a different word. So like not saying the word gay. This one is you are not a shell, that you actually have a mind, a brain, etc. We're not what we look. This is appearance is not what it's worth. I think there's one that's like, I will not engage in fat-free or in fat talk. So there's a million and one different things that that you can choose from this class. So I encourage you to get started on this as soon as you can. Contact me should you have any questions, and start to come up with an area of focus as soon as possible. Have a great rest of your afternoon.